Welcome to Caregiver SOS On Air, presented by the WellMed Charitable Foundation, with nationally known gerontologist Carol Zernial and award-winning veteran broadcaster Ron Aaron. This program provides health, wellness, and other information for caregivers who are vital to the health and well-being of so many people across our country. And now, here are your hosts, Ron Aaron and Carol Zernial.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on the award-winning Caregiver SOS On Air. I'm Ron Aaron. Our program available on podcast wherever you get your podcast. We're on the radio as well in several cities in Texas and Florida. Tina Smith is filling in today for Carol Zernial. Carol's on special assignment presenting at a national conference in Atlanta. And Tina is the Senior Director of Caregiver Program Operations at the WellMed Charitable Foundation. She's got a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's degree in social gerontology, and we're always thrilled to have her with us. So, Tina, if you find my voice, let me know.
I think you're doing great. You're doing great. And it's so good to be here with you all today. I always enjoy my time here with you all.
Well, this is a really important topic we're taking up with Karee White. Karee is a veteran, a military mother, and Elizabeth Dole Foundation Caregiver Fellow based in Apex, North Carolina. She and her husband, Jim, are both veterans. 7 of their only 9 children have served or are currently serving in the United States Armed Forces. Her story, Karee's daughter, Kimmy, an Army paratrooper, suffered severe traumatic brain injury at 25 years of age. And the rest of the story you can read in her book that's coming out very shortly called Ash Woven, and we'll tell you more about that. So, Karee White, thanks for joining us on Caregiver SOS On Air.
My pleasure to be here with you. Thank you, Ron.
I can't imagine, as a parent myself, what it must be like when you learn that your child has suffered a severe head injury. What was it like the day you got that news?
Oh, the moment. I always like to say nothing good happens after midnight. And we were living the life, probably close to 20 years after we had moved down here and I had exited from Fort Bragg. We were living in North Carolina. The call came at about 2 a.m. that Kimmy had suffered a traumatic brain injury in Italy after being stationed, after being deployed for approximately 11 months in Afghanistan at FOB Shank. And she had returned somewhat unscathed, but she was doing really well. And it was about 8 months after that, forward stationed with the 173rd Airborne, which is kind of like our 82nd Airborne in the sense of readiness, over in Italy, in Vicenza. And I got the call. She was in a coma. She was on life support, and it didn't look good. So within 24 hours, we were over there. My husband and I flew over. But it was a complete, abrupt realization, and not even actually realizing, but it was becoming the realization we were becoming caregivers at that point.
What happened? What caused the injury?
So she was in a POV or an automobile, and she was rear-ended on the Italian highway coming home from a military event. No blood alcohol, but it was a diffuse axonal injury. It's sort of the mid-brain stem shearing where the axons shear, and some of the shearing included her primary functions, awareness, breathing, things like that, basic functions, primal functions, put her in a coma. She was in a coma till the end, well over a year. I would say well over a year, maybe 13, 14 months in the end. It wasn't like the movie. She didn't emerge all of a sudden waking up one day. It was slow and gradual, and gave us a lot of scares along the way. But she did emerge severely brain injured after emerging in a severely brain injured state. But nonetheless, our Kimmy, a shell of what she was, And I don't mean that negatively. I just mean with the function capability. Because Kimmy gets it. She gets most everything, but she does have aphasia, which is a disability that takes away your capability to speak. So think of the locked-in syndrome where you can't say what's on your mind. That's what she has currently. She said a few words recently, and I don't want to break the ice on it, but it's been a long road. She's worked super hard to get where she is now.
Does she know what happened to her?
She does. We explain it. She doesn't remember it. She doesn't remember, honestly, she doesn't remember that whole year. Her memory is phenomenal when it comes to knowing her siblings, knowing her daughter, knowing her childhood, things that have happened in the past. But events that were close to and during that actual brain injury event, she doesn't recall it, which is good.
Stay with us just a minute. We're going to come right back to you. We're talking with Karee White, the story of her daughter, Kimmy. Her book, Ash Woven, is coming out. In fact, when you listen to this podcast, it will already been released. I'm Ron Aaron, along with Tina Smith, who is our co-host today, filling in for Carol Zernial. Karee White and her husband caring for their daughter, Kimmy, who had a severe traumatic brain injury. For those of you who just joined us, we're delighted to have you with us right here on the award-winning Caregiver SOS on air. So, Karee, you mentioned you realized that you had become a caregiver. What did that mean to you?
That's a loaded question, Ron. Uh, Initially, it meant a life turned upside down. My life, our family life turned upside down. It 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 became where I was in the hospital accompanying my daughter, trying to help her as a support person in her life to emerge from the coma. It meant my husband becoming Mr. Mom at home while six of our kids were still living at home, trying to get higher in his career. He was a vice president in a very esteemed position company. He was playing Mr. Mom, raising the kids solo because I needed to be by my daughter's side. She was separated from her husband, and I was really her voice. I was the eyes and the ears to protect her, to ensure that she was cared for in the best way we could. So I was her caregiver from the start, really in the hospital. My husband was the sole parent at home. It figuratively, over the next year, put us on our knees. Why? Financially, my husband's position, they merged companies and his position slowly evaporated. And he went into an entrepreneurial pursuit that was tough for him, but he was still trying to remain the parent in the family. The siblings stepped up, some of the older ones that were in their teens, to help parent, to help with the younger ones. And some would come. For example, one of my sons, Bo, came and actually took a janitorial position at the VA nursing, not a nursing home, but like a extended care facility, which was next to the VA Medical Center with the polytrauma ward in Richmond. And he took a position so he could be there with me also.
Wow.
He could see his sister. I had my daughter, who was at the time a teenager. She came for an extended period up to Boston when we were at Spalding in Boston on emerging consciousness therapy treatments for, gosh, almost 6 months there. And she kept me company, but she also tried to work with her sister when we would visit the hospital daily and spend the days with her. And then my youngest daughter, Delaney, and I talk about Delaney a lot in the book. Delaney was there because my granddaughter, Kimmy's daughter, was there with her separated husband. And Delaney became kind of like a quasi older sister. She was only 11 months older, still only 11 months older than Rory, but she became sort of the helper with Rory to give Rory a sense of balance. Rory, who had lost what she remembered with her mother, just 2 years old, essentially. And so all those mechanisms were in place when we were 1 year away from the family. And honestly, it was the toughest time to be separated with such a large family. But I think from the start, we started to get a little bit stronger. Didn't realize it till hindsight.
Talk to us about
So,
your book and the title, Ash Woven.
Wow, Ash Woven. I'm glad you asked me that, Ron. So, so the title Ash Woven, I think of ash as what's remaining. We had a massive fire 5 years ago in our home. Now, prefacing this, Kimmy's been home with us for 12 years now. Well, 11 years and odd days. The accident was 12 years ago, the brain injury, 1 year in hospitals. About 5 years ago, so she would have been home with us for about, maybe 6 years. We had a massive house fire. We moved Kimmy when she came home near us, right next to us in this very small cottage that had actually been on our property when we moved there. And we were able to get her into that place so that she didn't have to be in a nursing home. The fire really changed our life in what we valued. All our stuff was gone. And I think one of the graces, when I talk about graces, and I do elaborate on this in the book, is realizing that the material things were ashes. They were stuff that it didn't mean a thing compared to the fact that our family was alive, that we
Were you at
escaped.
home when the fire hit?
It was Christmas Day, the night of Christmas Day. And
oh
we'd
my
gone to
goodness.
bed about 11. It was 2 in the morning. And my husband, Jim, was laying next to me in our king size bed, shirtless with his pajama pants. And I heard this resounding uh, alarm go off. Well, that was our smoke alarm. Only one went off of the three that we have on the upstairs. We have a raised ranch in the upstairs of our home. And I hit the side of his shoulder and I said, Jim, see what the alarm is. There's something happening. What's going on? And he jumped out of bed. I don't know that he was fully awake. Jim doesn't wear shoes. Jumped out in his bare feet and ran out of the bedroom into the hallway. And meanwhile, I turned over toward my nightstand and grabbed my phone to see what time is this. And I could barely see the face of my phone with smoke. And it, I look back on that and I realize what a grace that we got out of the house as a family. Because I get it now how you can die of smoke inhalation. We didn't wake up coughing, choking. It just slowly asphyxiates you, asphyxiates you. And I felt afterward how lucky we were, but not right away. I grabbed my slippers. I ran out the side of the house. I could run straight, staying over leaning over, knowing that smoke rises. And I called the fire department when I got out. My husband ran and I heard him say, "Get out of the house. The house is on fire." And I could hear the crackling and I could feel the heat as I ran past. My husband, meanwhile, ran around the fire, ran down the stairs where the brunt of our family, visiting family also, were asleep. And he got them out the back door in the basement. But he had run across part of the floor. And remember, I told you he was barefooted. He had run across that portion that was firing hot because there were the flames that he ran not quite through them, but right around them. The
Right, now
floor
hold
was
that thought. We're going to pick it up in just a moment. This is an incredible story. I'm Ron Aaron. You're listening to Caregiver SOS on air, and we're talking to Karee White, who's home Christmas Day on fire. That's just one of the things they went through. Tina Smith, our co-host, is here. You're listening to Caregiver SOS on air.
Well, thank you so much for listening to Caregiver SOS On Air. We're delighted to have you with us. We come to you every week with a discussion of an issue, a problem, some accomplishments involved in caregiving with more than 60 million caregivers across this country, but most thinking they are the Lone Rangers. We try to bring you the latest information and help that can make that job easier and more manageable. Caregiver SOS On Air takes a look at trends across this country. We provide tips on how to be a better caregiver and, most importantly, where you can go for help. On Caregiver SOS On Air, we try to give you what you need to make that caregiving manageable and to provide you with the help that can make your life easier. I'm Ron Aaron. Carol Zernial and I are delighted to co-host this program, and we're thrilled you've joined us on the award-winning Caregiver SOS On Air podcasts available everywhere, brought to you by WellMed Charitable Foundation.
Hello, friend. Hello, friend. Really good to see you once again. Hello, friend. Hello, friend. Really good to see you once again.
We're listening to an incredible story from Karee White talking about a fire that ripped through their home 5 years after their daughter is living with them, struggling with a severe traumatic brain injury. I'm Ron Aaron. Tina Smith filling in for Carol Zernial is with us. And we pick up the story, your husband, Tim, trying to get your 300 kids up and out. And he's running barefoot across where the fire had hit the floor. How did he get them out of there?
So they woke up and there was a different door down in the basement and he got them out that door. Everyone was fine, even the two dogs. But going back to why I named the book Ash Woven, ash is what remained from the fire. I'd like to say woven is what love kept making through all of this. That's just one example of a tragedy that had happened over those 12 years that we've had our daughter. The fire changed us, but it didn't end us.
Now, Kimmy, could she walk? Did she get out, or did someone have to carry her?
So Kimmy was in the little cottage right next to our house, and luckily the flames never made it to there.
Oh, cool.
The fire trucks came within about 10 minutes or so from our call, but we have an especially long driveway. We have a 900-foot driveway through the woods, and they had to run the hose all the way down to the fire hydrant at the end of the driveway. Something really unique happened, and I consider this part of the graces that I have experienced, my husband, our family, throughout this whole 12-year period. A fireman got out and he came up to me. We were out freezing. It was like 27 degrees. It was, December in North Carolina can be really cold. My husband was cold. He had burned feet. He had to go to the UNC burn center for his feet. And, but we're all out there with blankets that we'd taken from my daughter's cottage. And we were waiting as they're putting the fire out. But he came up to us and he said, I know your daughter, Kimmy, right? And I said, yes, Kimmy, she's in the cottage and they're okay. They're fine. And he said, I went to school with Kimmy. She was awesome. She was really a neat person. And, the oddest thing is that gave me a sense of comfort when we were freezing and we felt the loss. Everything was being lost. Here was this warmth that came through. I write about a lot of experiences like that I guess another part of Ash Woven that I want to bring up is the title is grief, but it's also resilience. And we felt renewal along the way, and our story was shaped by the fire, but it wasn't finished by it. And the thread of our past, my family service, the legacy behind everything, it isn't nostalgia, it's responsibility. And so the years of caring for my daughter, our family involved in that venture, really is something that our family keeps choosing to do.
Now, folks who want to get a hold of your book, how do they do that?
So it's available April 23rd, which is coming up. and it is on Amazon. It's also in an e-Kindle version. I think the biggest thing that I would love to say about Ashwoven is it's it's a reflection of how you can have tragedy, but you can find renewal. And it's a combination of faith, it's hope, it's not giving up.
So, I mean, I love the word resilience that you used for that, because I mean, that sounds exactly what it is. And so, what would you, I guess, what are there any tangible things, or what would you tell caregivers who are facing their own series of tragedies or setbacks, or whatever it is that that they're facing? How would you tell them to get that?
Yeah. When Kimmy came home, nobody gave us a roadmap. We were exhausted. We felt invisible. And I think that's a common thread that caregivers have. Caregiving shapes the whole household, even the children, if they're children in the household. My opening, really what helped me start in a strong healing fashion and a strengthening fashion, was the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. Finding that foundation and meeting other fellows, realizing we weren't alone. And I know people have talked about the numbers of caregivers out there. Just alone, military veteran caregivers, there's over 14 million, I want to say 14.3 million caregivers, but there's also 2.3 or so, almost 2.5 million helpers out there, hidden helpers, which are the family members like my children that have helped along the way and continue to help. I remember when I first met a fellow, as a new fellow, I became a fellow in 2018. I applied and I became a fellow, which is the heart and soul of the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. And one of the fellows said to me, you volunteer to serve in the military, but you're drafted as a caregiver. And I thought about it. Well, that's kind of interesting, but that doesn't mean that you can't find new ways of finding joy. It was the most disruptive thing that could happen to me after 20 years of a life that was really blossoming with my family, my growing family, and my husband and his career, my career. And to suddenly have it turned upside down, I think that it's about humans finding one another and realizing you're not alone. And the Elizabeth Dole Foundation helped me become a leader to so many other people that are out there in that situation, even non-military, that are caregiving. A lot of people don't even realize they're caregivers. They're just managing meds or they're checking on someone. But that's the point. Realizing you're a caregiver is the first step in acceptance and in helping you readjust your life and begin to find new ways of joy. And it doesn't have to be the same, it won't be the same things that you had before you became that caregiver. And it doesn't have to be the distraction that holds you down. There was a point I started to realize I was resenting my caregiving. It was taking me away from all those things that I had left behind. I hated it. I couldn't go to so many events. Call it a grace. But I found there was another point later on that I had suddenly started accepting. And I think it was communicating with other caregivers to find little respite bits that could give me renewal. And I changed the way I looked at it. And now I have, as an example, I love fitness. I started teaching fitness classes after I exited the military. I was always looking for challenges. I went to French Commando, first female, graduate from French Commando School. I ran the Chicago Marathon. I was always looking for challenges. Getting out of the service, around having all our children, I was always teaching fitness. I was loving it. When the accident happened, I took a sabbatical, but I got back into it. And that was my respite and is my respite. And I tell my classes, I teach 10, 12 classes a week, seniors especially. And I tell them, you are my respite. You give me a purpose.
I hate to
And
do
they
this,
love it.
but we are flat out of time. And I have to be careful because as a trained commando, you could kill us with just one hand. Thank you, Karee White. Incredible story, Kimmy's story. The book is Ash Woven. Thank you to Tina Smith. I'm Ron Aaron. We'll talk soon on the award-winning Caregiver SOS On Air.
The executive producer for Caregiver SOS On Air is Daniel Calderon. The producer is Sharice Pendleton. And the associate producer is Catherine Oglesby. We'll see you next week on Caregiver SOS On Air.
You've been listening to Caregiver SOS On Air, an exclusive presentation of the WellMed Charitable Foundation. We welcome emails with suggestions and comments on this program at radio@wellmed.net. Join co-hosts Carol Zernial and Ron Aaron next week for more on caregiving, improving the health and well-being of caregivers and their care recipients everywhere. For more on caregiving and podcasts of our programs, visit caregiversos.org.